Let's get to episode 4.
Yeah.
Episode review. Who wants to go first? So, Just, why don't you give a bit of the synopsis of like what happened in the episode? Or Creighton, you're the
Creighton would be better.
So we've been bagging on you for getting way ahead.
Yeah,
I'm way ahead.
Well, I mean, once I started, I just couldn't stop.
I watched episode 6 this morning.
Oh, it's great.
I'm the only one that stuck to the. We set out a plan.
Well, okay, so I'm teaching. Here's the thing. I'm teaching through this stuff, and it's been really cool because these episodes have actually lined up almost perfectly.
And I just didn't care about your rules.
Well,
It wasn't my rule.
Well, that was my rule, and I bailed on it.
It's not my fault because they put the first 3 episodes all out at the same time.
I had self-control.
How are you not expected to watch all of those?
No, that's smart. I get it. And typically, I would wait until a show either was done or had at least 6 episodes so that I could
watch all 6.
Yeah, but we were trying to do reviews, so I'm already I'm current. Justin's current. Although I've watched episode 4 twice, so I have thoughts.
So 4 up until this most recent one was my favorite one.
Creighton, give a quick synopsis of it. I find that crazy, but start with a synopsis.
So the episode opens. It's David and Samuel. They're talking about his most recent
his vision or whatever.
The vision that he got when he was being anointed. That's what I was looking for.
The Holy
anointing. The brothers end up talking with the father. They're going to try and hide this. Make sure that nobody knows that David has been anointed, because if they do, bad things will happen.
Which, by the way, before you bag on those guys,
hey,
Samuel had the same, in the Bible, Samuel had the same trepidation about going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
one of the things that I really liked about the episode is after they have this conversation and they're like, we can't tell anybody, David stays away from all people.
Mum's the word. Shh. Go back to the fields, boy.
Immediately after that scene, Joab shows up and he's like, David needs to come with me.
Summons from the king.
Why?
Summons from the king.
I really like that, because that's one of those things that even up until I watched the episode, and we had talked about the fact that this happens directly after the anointing.
Yeah, the timing of it all.
The dots had not connected in my brain that this would be like Saul knows what's going on, and he's calling David to execute.
That's what it would feel like.
That's what it would feel like.
Okay, get back to the synopsis. So he starts to play music for the king.
He's playing music for Saul.
We're getting more of Saul's distressed spirit
We're
thing
seeing
going
a lot
on,
of that. There is a really interesting side plot between Saul's younger son and the laws around premarital sex, which I really enjoyed.
With the tribe of Dan.
With the tribe of Dan. And so that goes on. David has his interactions with Michael kind of blossom. Michael starts to teach him how to read, which I thought was a cool element. I hadn't thought about the fact that, hey, maybe David doesn't know how to read, because why in the world would he? Why would he?
And she reads for him the Song of Moses, and he asks, is there music to this?
And then he ends up playing it for her and Saul later on in the episode,
and Saul recognizes
was really cute.
Saul recognizes, hey, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I thought that was really cute.
And then the episode,
I think that's
the episode lands on a kind of a cliffhanger, because the one son is being taken to a city of refuge, and
that's right.
Something weird happens where
his caravan gets attacked, and some dude's just like, "Hey, are you?
Yeah, you want to come with me?
Shab, or whatever his name is.
Whatever, yeah.
Are you coming?" And then they walk off into the night
after
with the carriage burning.
All his people.
Oh yeah, and the horses. You notice that?
Yeah.
Killed the horses
Poor
too.
Horses. Well, because they would run away with the cart.
Oh yeah, no, it was a good choice.
Let me ask you though. I can't help just right off the bat. So one of the things that was the biggest hurdle for you to begin with was non-biblical storylines, but you just now referenced an entire subplot to the 4th episode that has zero Bible behind it. But you said, I really like that. So where are you now?
He's hooked.
So I am now, I'm bought into the show. I am really enjoying it as a show, just regardless of its biblical implications and the fact that it's cool that we have.
It's a really good show. Even if you didn't know anything about it, it's well done.
It's well done. The cinematography's fun. I'm enjoying the show a lot. And as a result of me enjoying the show, just as a show, I think that I'm able to be a little bit less
cynical.
I was going to use the word particular, but yes, cynical. I am able to enjoy it more now because I've reframed it a bit.
Yeah,
in my
no,
head.
I get that.
I'm no longer looking for direct chapter by chapter.
Bro,
Now that I've
Yes.
removed myself from the expectation of chapter by chapter storytelling, I'm enjoying it a lot more.
I told you
and
that.
I'm able to
Yes.
actually dig into it a bit more and enjoy some of the
nuances that you might have.
nuances and the allusions to
Other things.
actual biblical stuff.
Yeah, like for example, with that
So-
scene, what I liked about it was that like it gave you insight into how the Levitical law would be applied in
Yes.
varying scenarios. And so like the storyline is Saul's second son ends up,
Philandering.
defiling
Philandering's a good
one
word.
of the daughters of the tribe of Dan, one of the leaders of the tribe of Dan. So they come and they want him to either marry her, which would join the families together, or be stoned to death according to the Levitical law, which is true. Although I loved how Saul's wife countered, well, you do know that we would also stone your daughter
Right.
because, she also committed adultery, but that the ultimate play is that she's sending him to a city of refuge, which is a total biblical thing. Like that's an actual thing.
I really like that because I don't think we talk about the implications both politically and sociologically of refuge cities and what that actually means for
You're
a
right.
country. And also I thought they did a really good job of showing what that particular passage it's I don't remember what it's in Leviticus, that law
Yeah.
where it talks about premarital sex and that they're either fornicating and they're both stoned or they get married. I think it's one of the most highly misused. It's often cited by people who are detractors of the Bible, and I thought they did a really good job of showing what it would look like in practice,
Yes.
which I thought was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
I should just, for some clarity, in case you're watching and you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about biblically. City of refuge is not the same thing as like in the American context,
Sanctuary
a
cities.
sanctuary city where, illegals are basically given carte blanche legal coverage. This was an actual mechanism within Jewish culture for
Retribution avoidance.
protection.
Yeah.
The overhanded use of retribution, where it's like, okay, a crime has been committed, and yeah, there's consequences, but there are these places where there's a measure of refuge. Again, I'm with you. I thought that was very interesting. I'm very interested on how they're going to take that story because they leave it. And again, spoiler, but we're through the 6th episode. They haven't come back to it at all. So
Really?
who knows? Maybe they Game of Thrones. It's like 3 seasons from now where you finally get back around to like what happened to him and where he is.
You're like, do you guys remember that Saul had 2 sons?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He comes back around at some point because he dies.
Right.
He dies with Saul. So there was all of that. I did feel like that episode 4 was very similar to episode 2 in the sense that it was character developing. 1 and 3 are like full Bible stories, fun. I felt like 4, which I'm totally fine with. I understand what they're doing, and I felt like, again, they're emphasizing the right things. They're giving backstory to. I think again, if they do several seasons of this,
They've already
Renewed
signed off for 2.
season 2 has been renewed.
Oh, has it really?
Yeah, Amazon has renewed season 2.
Awesome.
So there's at least that. But like there's a lot of fun things that they'll be able to. I say fun things. It's tragic. But the whole love relationship with David and Michael, I love how they're presenting it right now. I think that's completely probably factual. But just the way that narrative will arc over the course of a couple seasons kind of makes what you're watching right now even more heartbreaking.
And it's gonna make it really fun to watch on a. Fun is again the wrong word.
right.
Tragic is the right word, but it's
Yes.
gonna make it really interesting to watch on a rewatch after we get to see these two grow into who they become.
And that's where I come back to like what I was saying when you were irritated with the first
Right.
couple was like, hey, like if they just go on a verse by verse thing, like you're not going to have the depth for the and for the impact of what that story.
I think that's why this was one of my favorite episodes until this most recent one.
Well, we can't go
Yeah,
further.
I'm not going in
I
depth,
have not seen
but
it.
Don't go further. Keep
I'm
this
not,
2 episodes
but
ahead.
The character development thing for me is what's drawing me into this, because when you read the Bible, you have to go chapter by chapter by chapter, and you don't see the intertwinings where this chapter and this chapter could be happening at the exact same time, and you don't get that feeling when you're reading. And then you have the underlying nature of just human psychology and things like that are happening. But then just like for me, like the episode 4 is when they really delve into David's musical talent.
Yes, which is cool.
And when I'm reading the Bible, like I've been to Israel, I've seen the landscape and stuff like that, and I've heard what people think the instrument that he played sounds like, things like that. But it's so hard to read the Bible and not understand David as a person. And then now even reading the Bible, I don't get that kind of character development from the Bible.
A lot of the stories are bones.
At least early
yes.
David. Like how does David
Less than bones.
Yeah, how does
Right,
how does he move from a shepherd of the field to Saul's palace? Like,
and what would that feel like to do?
what would that be like? And
Or the
why
circumstances surrounding. Who brings up the idea? How
Right.
would they have known David?
how did-
having Michael had that exposure in Judah.
And how did Saul not know that David was anointed king? All this is coming into play.
Yeah.
In especially in episode 4, you get all of that in it, and this is like over
the plot's thickening.
The plot's thickening, but it's stuff I've read for years and years, and it's over the course of what, 4 or 5 chapters in the Bible that this happens.
We're in like
Yeah.
2.5, 3 chapters.
Yeah,
is all we've
and
covered,
all
right?
of the, but like all of this is happening in that course, but it's so much bigger than what can fit inside the words of that, and I think they just do an excellent job. Because when I hear David played for Saul, well, what makes him better than another dude down the road?
Yeah.
And then you see it in the show, and he's just like, okay,
I get it.
I get it.
Yeah. I
And
completely
then-
agree with that.
Then you start thinking about just stuff like going through the Psalms and seeing the like David wrote all these songs and stuff. Like,
Why don't you
why
tell the folks what we're doing with the church? Kind of a new
yeah,
wrinkle
so
to
like
everything.
we're going through Samuel and stuff like that, and so we're just now getting into this storyline that we're watching on the House of David. But like David was a poet. David wrote songs, like
Over half of them.
Right. What would that look like? Why would, like, I'm musically impaired.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know music. I know it sounds good. I know it doesn't. But like
That's even suspect.
He likes.
But,
we know your
I
playlist.
know you like Scott.
I know
That's
your
real
playlist.
suspect.
But I've also like I've taught English and stuff like that, so like poetry and stuff I understand, and lyrics I understand. But to hear like in episode 4 when he plays the Song of Moses, like you read the Song of Moses and you're like, oh, I wonder what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And then for them, is that exactly how it sounded like? No idea. But
Yeah,
did
no one
they do
knows,
it?
yeah.
But they do a good job in the show? Absolutely.
Which is why I really love the fact that everything's in English, but when he sings,
yeah.
that they kept the singing in Hebrew, because again, the way that the Psalms would read is going to be a totally different cadence. Like it's not
Even the melody,
right.
It doesn't work with English.
Correct. For sure. No, I'm with you. So what we're doing with the church is, so we're doing the Harmony of History series, but we recorded some tonight. We're calling it the Psalms of Histories. So like any of the Psalms related to these chapters that we're looking at, we're doing like 10-minute, 15-minute videos on those Psalms related to. So for example, where David's a shepherd. You know, he's a shepherd in the field of Bethlehem. He's been anointed. He's still a shepherd. He's going back and forth between the palace. And so there's 4 Psalms that David wrote that would make a lot of sense to have been written during that period of time. So we're kind of like trying to work in to the narrative, like Psalms that are relevant, which I think I'm even more pumped up about it after tonight. We recorded three of them, which was a lot of fun. So for me, here was my big encouraging takeaway from the 4th episode. So I will judge the entire show on one core idea.
Oh, I did from immediately when I said if Goliath isn't exactly
Well, that was you.
Yeah,
That's not how I was going to judge the whole show. I will judge the entire show completely based upon do they Sunday school Christianize, whitewash David and make him just the hero? Or do they actually present David as the very flawed, conflicted, tragic character that he is? That's how I'll judge the show. Because if they Christian Sunday school felt board it, I'm out at some point.
I feel like they've already shown his flaws.
Well, so here's the deal. And this is where I was encouraged in this particular episode. There were 2 moments. The first one was at the very beginning where Samuel like puts his hand on his hand and boom, sees a castle on fire. Right? And he says, you know, there's light and darkness. You're complicated. I think he's seeing like the Battle of Armageddon at the end, like the end of the throne. Like he sees not like, or the destruction of Jerusalem under Nebuchadnezzar, or like he's seeing like, hey, your line is going to be fraught with issues. And then there's so David is brought into, to meet the queen. The sorcerer is there and he leaves, and the sorcerer makes some comment about he has light, but darkness as well. Like
Anakin Skywalker kind of.
For sure. Like in that sense. And like, so there were 2 moments, both from Samuel and the witch, both saying almost the same thing, that David is both light and darkness to an extent. And like, I hope that that's foreshadowing into the overarching arc, the way that they'll develop all of this. Because again, if they just present David as just this great hero,
they'll miss out on like half of what David is.
I'm reading a book. I read a book by Mark Rutland on David the Great. And like he opens by he was in Israel and he was working on the book, and some Jewish lady was at a cafe or something like that and was like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm writing about King David. And she looked at him like, why would you write about that bloody man? Like, and that like even the Israelites have they realize he is a hero. Yes. And the Bible, like the Bible mentions David more than any other person but Jesus. 1,000 references to the fact that Jesus is the son of David. Again, that's a very complicated thing. I hope, and I got a little bit of an indication that they were that's a little foreshadowing of how they'll play it out.
Speaking of nuance, one of the things that I noticed that you mentioned is that when David is playing the Song of Moses for Michal and Saul, is that Saul recognizes it as the Song of Moses. I thought that was really cool because it would be really easy for someone to do the exact opposite of what you're worried about they might do for David to Saul, which is paint Saul as this complete heathen garbage person who knows nothing about the Lord,
right?
Which he totally isn't.
Well, he becomes that.
Well, yeah,
Right.
he has the downward path.
Well, I think
but
you
Saul
recognize that.
Was chosen by God.
Yes.
I thought it was really cool.
For
that they
reasons,
had
for
him.
noble reasons.
Well, I think you.
Right.
You
I thought it was really
you
cool they had
mentioned
him say
you
that.
mentioned that in your last sermon on Sunday.
Yeah.
You go. Saul wanted that music because that's what makes him feel good. He wasn't approaching the throne of God for worship. That worship made him feel better about himself. And I think we see a lot. I mean, why in Hollywood movies do they always play Amazing Grace? Same kind of thing. It just makes you feel good, even though you don't understand the words of that song at all.
It's the same reason that people take Jesus' name in vain when they don't believe in Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's actually power in the name. Mm-hmm. Like nobody says, Buddha, when they stub their toe. You know, they use my Lord's name in vain, which is very, very, like, I think Christians should be way more indignant about that. And I think we're not. Like, you don't see people doing that with Muhammad's name. Why? Because you put a cartoon in there, somebody's going to go shoot up the place. I'm not saying that. But like there should be a reverence, and I think, you know, Creighton, going back to like, and we'll move on, but like what you've experienced, the same thing that I had to go through with The Chosen. Like at some point you've got to be like, okay, this is not going to fit my expectation entirely, but I got to really appreciate it for what it is and not for what it isn't.
I have to say one thing. I have enjoyed. I've watched The Chosen. And
I enjoyed this way more than
Yeah, I enjoyed this a whole lot. I mean, I think I tried to get you hooked on The Chosen a while ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
And this one is
way better.
Way better. It's more accurate and more true to the Bible than.
And that's not a knock on The Chosen.
This has made me think maybe I should go back and watch The Chosen, which my mom tried to get me to watch years ago.
No, you
and
should.
then I never did because I was like, it's.
Yeah.
Well, I think what
TV. Why
I think what this is doing better than The Chosen does is The Chosen leaned more into the unwritten story behind stuff. So they were
reading between the lines.
They're reading, whereas the Bible
in weird ways.
Yeah, where the Bible has. When I saw the trailer for this, I thought Game of Thrones vibes immediately.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I was like, oh, if they do this and follow what the Bible actually says instead of trying to Christianize it, I guess Sunday school it, like you said, like this is going to be really good. And I think that's the problem with modern Christianity, at least in America, is that we've Sunday schooled the Bible and it just feels like a story instead of this is like actual people, because they're taking into psychology, they're taking into the jealousy, just everything you would see on Jerry Springer, you're seeing in the life of Saul and David and stuff like that. And it's just,
I don't know which Jerry Springer episodes you're referring
you know
to.
What I'm saying?
Well, like, I mean, with Eliashab and the tribe of Dan, that was very Jerry Springer.
Right. But what I'm saying is that was like
1000 BC.
We haven't
Jerry
had
Springer.
midget strippers yet.
Jerry
So.
Springerus.
Like you take the Bible from being something far off and something I can't relate to now I'm like, oh yeah, I fully understand why Saul was so angry and threw a spear at David. Spoiler alert if you haven't gotten to that far in the Bible yet. But like those kinds of things are you look at it and you're like, you watch one episode of Cops and you're going to see the same kind of thing happen.
All right, well we got to move on. I will say, to wrap it all up, is that I at least I'll say that they're consistent with the stupid bastard child storyline. Like they have
doesn't
not
seem to be going away.
They have not like just rolled that one over.
Did you get an answer on that on your Twitter? I saw
know.
that.
I tweeted out. Greg Laurie was like, "Hey, you're like talking this show up big time. You know, would you care to comment?" And then you like search it. We're not the only ones saying like, "What the heck is this?"
Oh, that's good to know.
Like, no, that's a pretty universal thing from like I was even reading like Catholic websites that were having the same type of like there's just a lot.
They also think that Mary was an eternal virgin. So I mean,
that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying we can relate to it. Like even if the Catholics are even like,
Look,
that's
if the
messed
Catholics
up.
who believe that Mary's an introvert are like, what is it with David's mom in this?
Okay.
It's
but I will give you let me give you one detail that even if they're going with that storyline, they've completely butchered.
even if.
What it's the writing's inconsistent. They don't have, so in First Chronicles, I think it's chapter 2, there is the mention of 2 sisters. So David had 2 sisters. Now, biblically, it seems as though that they're older than David. Reason being is that while we don't have any mention of David's brothers being part of his crew, he has 3 nephews that are ballers. Like the actual Joab, that's David's right-hand man, is his nephew.
Oh.
Like the killer, I'm going to bury the bodies, Joab, is his nephew from one of his sisters. So again, age-wise, that would mean that the sister has to be older to have a nephew that's, you know, a peer or close enough in age to be in the story. Now, in the show, they have a sister, but she's little. She's young, which again, there's not a biblical statement of that, but here's where they're inconsistent. How is she not getting the same type of ridicule that David is? Because there is no mom. So, like, wait a
She's not
second,
allowed
wouldn't-
to leave the house.
Like, wouldn't she be biologically David's full sister? That she
Right?
would have
Wouldn't
had.
she have the same bad blood that David has?
But that
if
doesn't-
David has bad blood.
That doesn't seem to. So, like, there's a bit of a plot hole. that.
But culturally, that does make a little bit more sense than David. Culturally, she would have been in the house until she's married off.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm talking about. The
but from
family
the
loves her.
family.
The family loves her. Like she's not like there's no like negativity around. We're introduced. She's in the house getting the Bible stories with the rest of the family.
Well, David's coming back from the fields.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like that seems like a weird oversight. But anyway, what I want to talk about tonight